So obviously the main reason I made this channel was to go over tech and business based concepts and stuff and just try to dress up the concepts that will make them easier to understand. And one of the other sectors of tech, because I've mainly covered traditional IT like networking and cybersecurity and stuff like that, maybe some project management if you consider that IT or IT adjacent. But I've been sticking to traditional IT concepts more than anything at this point. So I want to pivot to a different sector of tech that's also blown up, that's also very lucrative. I've looked into it and it looks pretty interesting. I'm not sure if I'll ever try to get my hands on, is UX/UI design. So this video is going to be an intro to UX/UI design, going over what these things are and their relationship with one another. So first, UX or user experience and UI, user interface, are not the same thing, but because of their like functionality and what they each mean, it's pretty much impossible to separate them from each other. Job wise, you can be either a UX designer or UI designer. They can split into two different things because they do have their own core functions, but the relationship is just so close that you can't truly separate them in concept, at least. Maybe in function and jobs you can, but in concept you need to know both. So we're going to start with UI or user interface. So if you don't know what interface is, you can translate this a few different ways. Whenever I hear interface, like when you interface with your computer, with your laptop, when you interface with your phone, when you interface with Instagram or Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff, interface is another way of saying, like, say, connector. An interface is something that allows you to interact with something else. So user interface, or the UI segment of UI UX, focuses on basically like the way that an app looks or that a website looks when you first open the app, when you first go to the website and log in, and you have whatever different tabs on the side, whether it's on the side, is on the top, is on the bottom, the layout of the page, the content that's there, those all focus on user interface. It's what you're looking at when you're doing stuff on a computer screen or on your phone screen, whether you're creating content or you're just watching content. For example, if I was to give you, like, say if I'm a teacher and I was to give you a homework assignment saying, I want you to go over the interfaces of multiple different music streaming platforms, whether Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube has, I think, like an exclusive music streaming side to them as well. That would be another one. Just different music streaming platforms, Pandora. And if I was to give you an assignment and say, go over the interfaces of these different apps on your phone or on your computer, but most likely your phone, and basically describe the interface and how they differ from one another. What I'm asking you to do is to look at those web pages or to look at the pages on those apps when you first open those apps on your phone, and to basically go over the overall layout. How do they have different tabs set up? Where's your personal profile? Maybe where's your playlists or albums that you've liked, the songs you've saved, the type of music that you can use. One thing I love about Spotify, I can listen to more like anime type music, like the intro rock songs that are hype and stuff like that, or songs that come up in like super hype popular fights in shonen manga or shonen anime, that I can listen to that on Spotify. In my experience, because I've used Apple Music for a while, to be honest, in my experience, Apple Music doesn't let you do that. It has this other thing where you can connect with different users on Apple Music, but the music that they have is more, I guess you can say, traditional. Like they have like regular like studio albums, every like Drake album, Kendrick Lamar, and that whole situation, regular bands and stuff like that. Spotify allows you to, like, as an end user, as a regular everyday person, to make your own rendition of a bunch of popular songs, and you can upload them as your own, maybe make some money off of it, I don't know. But that's something that Apple Music doesn't let you do. A lot of the like Asian-based music, K-pop and whatever else I listen to, One OK Rock and stuff like that. Well, One OK Rock you can probably find on Apple Music, but there are other like anime open songs, like the opening songs and stuff like that, that I'm not going to be able to find on Apple Music. So that's why, personally, for me, I ultimately opted for Spotify. And some of these details, not everything, this actually kind of relates to a different sector, but this does play a role in user interface when it comes to the functionality of the screen that you see when you first open an app or website, and basically how efficient it is. This is why user experience and user interface go hand in hand, because when it comes to how a website or an app page looks, how well it runs, is it intuitive? Meaning when you're looking for certain buttons and things on the menu, whether it's in Discord and different chat apps, how to access your chats, how to access your individual DMs, whether it's your personal profile, how to change your name and stuff like that. Are those different processes easy to do, or are they very difficult? If they're very difficult, then it's going to seem tedious to do the most basic thing. Take this for an example. Like for me in my line of work, I have to spit out and produce different reports on a weekly basis. And we have a website or a web app that we use that allows us to, I guess you say, schedule how often we want certain Excel reports to be sent to my email, so that I can keep on top of different changes that I may have to make to records in our database and stuff like that. But if that process of scheduling the reports, if I want a report sent to me every week, every Monday morning, once to twice a week, and going through that process of setting up the time, the email address to send it to, the name or subject line of the email, if going through that whole process is tedious, then you can say that the user interface is not good, because it makes something so simple in concept very difficult. And if something is difficult to do, then your experience with that platform is not going to be as enjoyable. Hence, enter user experience or UX. This is why you have that relationship with them that can't really be separated. Because if you have a user interface and it's good and it's great, it's intuitive, it's probably the first time that someone hopped on this app and they just start using it as if they've been doing it for months or years, however long the platform's been out, then it's very intuitive. Chances are that they'll have a better user experience when it comes to that product. If you have a website or a web app that is just difficult to use, maybe some things are easier than others, it's important and you can't not have it, and you need to use it for your job or for your personal reasons. But if every single time you need to do something, like again, spewing out a report or something else that you do for your job, and it takes like 10 steps to do the simplest thing, then your user experience is going to take a hit, because it's not intuitive, it's tedious. Maybe the website or web app crashes often, or kind of just randomly clears everything, and so you frequently have to set things back up again for whatever reason that we don't know. These all impact user experience. So this is why UI and UX go together, and they're pretty much never going to be considered separate from one another, at least in concepts. The reason that user experience and UI, just to dig deeper into this, will never be separated, we can look at it like this. I've made comparisons about architects and engineers multiple times, so we're just going to stick with that example and apply it here. User designers are similar to architects, the same way you have solution architects or network architects, and then you have engineers or developers that build out what the architects have designed. In UX, UI, you have the same thing. Now, you can have UX designers and UI designers, but the gist of the designer is to paint out the blueprint of how you want a phone app or a website to look, where you want certain boxes on the website, the size of them, the overall layout of the page. Do you want the menu on your left-hand side or on the right-hand side? Do you want to have menus on both? Will you have certain options on the left side and then certain ones on the right side? It depends on what the use of the product is going to be that influences these decisions. But you paint out or draw out the blueprint of the different pages that will make up your phone app or your web app, your computer app, the website, all that stuff. You draw those pictures out literally, and then you would have to send them over to user interface designers. That's on the user interface side. Then you would have to send them, well, that'd be on the designer side. Then you would have to send them to engineers who would actually build out or push out these templates and apply them to the application that's being developed by the engineers, the actual coders and software engineers. And again, this is pretty common when it comes to different relationships between engineers and architects of all different lines of work. Whether you have traditional architects and civil engineers when it comes to erecting giant buildings, all around us, different skyscrapers and whatnot in major cities, especially places like New York. Or when you have cloud architects with cloud engineers or developers, where the architects would design the layout of what would make up the infrastructure of a certain application that a customer may want, or would make up the overall IT infrastructure of an entire organization. And then they would push that blueprint, that picture, over to the developer so that they can actually build everything out. And of course, there's a process when it comes to the budget and what's functional and what's not functional and what's most efficient and all that stuff. And they have that back and forth until the final product gets pushed out. UX UI does pretty much the same thing. One side is going to focus more on the vision of what the customer wants, and you just paint the picture of it with instructions. And then the other side would focus on actually building this out and making sure that's actually functional and optimal. And if it's not, then they push it back and people go back and forth until they reach an agreement that leads to a product that works all the way around. So naturally, people want to know if UI/UX is very much in demand, and it is. UX UI is, I don't think it's ever going to go anywhere. Granted, and if you focus on the tech sector of UI UX design, there has been a noticeable decline since 2022 for obvious reasons. But the main reason, of course, being the multiple waves of layoffs, primarily in the tech industry, but also in other industries with tech roles, that people just keep getting laid off at the drop of a dime. But primarily, if you focus outside of the tech industry, UX UI designers are very much still in demand, and hiring managers are keeping their eyes open for these people. So that still makes it a lucrative and very important role to get into if that's something you're willing to look into. Because keep in mind, you can still have this tech-based role just outside of like the big tech companies. So if you're looking for like fintech, med tech, or the medical field, especially the government, yes, the government needs UX UI designers as well, or companies with government clients, those people will need UX designers as well. So outside of the, I guess you say, formal or big tech industry, this position is very much still in demand. But in the tech industry, there has been a noticeable decline, especially since layoffs are still going on. The market is oversaturated or just pretty saturated at this point, just because, once again, the tech wave or the tech boom that happened, everyone started learning about the different sides of tech, how lucrative they were, everyone got into it, companies were overhiring, and now, well, for the past few years now, at this point, last couple of years, tech companies have been laying off multiple people to open up positions, or frankly, just to get rid of people in positions that maybe weren't necessary because they did overhire during the pandemic and the peak of it. So now they're kind of cleaning up house still. Plus, a lot of companies' financial performance has declined, and we'll probably talk about that in a later video. But a lot of these bigger companies, their financial performance has declined. So even in a more traditional business sense, they have to lay people off in waves to save up money and to fulfill obligations that they may have with their board of directors and whatnot. But overall, I think UX UI is still very much safe to go into, whether you're in the private sector, you're a regular everyday civilian, or if you're in the public sector, which is becoming either related or a part of a company with a government client, or you're part of a government entity itself. You become an employee of a government entity itself. Either way, UX design still very much has some room that you can get in there and play with, and it's obviously lucrative. So yeah, definitely still something worth looking at. But all right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and leave this here. If you have any questions or feedback for me, share that with me in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.